Good morning, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Now that title down there, I hate it. I hate people saying things like that, and I've been seeing it so much recently. I was going through my Facebook feed the other day, and someone shared this massive post with the caption, "Spot on mate, love it." And all I saw initially at the top of this post was massive music rant, scroll past if not your thing. It is definitely my thing. And I read it, and it made me really, really angry, so I'm just going to go through it again today and address any of the points that I feel need to be addressed in this huge, huge post. Watched the documentary on pop music earlier, and what makes a record reach the top? The answer? Blandness in capital letters. Ordinary, nothing too crazy, nothing musically exciting and fresh, just bland, beige shit. Well, obviously, mate. There may be a few exceptions to this, but of course most of the best-selling music is fairly bland. It has to be, because to sell really, really well, it has to appeal to a very, very large group of people, and while we're all very nuanced and subtle beings as individuals, trying to appeal to some really unusual and subtle experience or emotion isn't going to work if you're trying to sell loads of records. People like and buy music that they can relate to. If you want to sell a lot of music, you've got to make it relatable for a lot of people. I'm not arguing that people shouldn't be more open to different types of music and new musical experiences, but if you're referring to it purely from a sales perspective, of course it's going to be bland. At least thematically. As far as instrumentals go, it's constantly evolving and there are lots of new and interesting ideas and totally fresh sounds coming out. Like a nice dinner that could have been good, but instead it's all mushed up in a fucking blender so some cunt with no fucking teeth at all can eat it. The language on this guy, fucking hell. That's exactly what Ed Sheeran is. He's like cheese, not even good cheese, just one of those processed cheese slices you get, not even Dairy ones either. Tesco fucking value. That's not really fair, and I'm not speaking as an Ed Sheeran fan, but what you're doing there is you are like having an argument with his genre, not his music. It's not like he burst onto the scene as an acid jazz dubstep artist. He was always, you know, an acoustic guitar singer-songwriter. Arguably the most generic and boring type of musician. And you've got to give credit to the guy. He did work incredibly hard to get where he is, and I don't care if you like his music or if you don't, that's fine. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinions on what music they like or dislike, but he did work hard, and I have no ill feeling towards him for getting to where he's got, because all he's done is be incredibly successful in pop music. Heard Kassabian's new tune today. They said they were back to save guitar music. Fucking kill me now, or better yet, fucking kill them. This guy's a prick, but I haven't actually listened to Kassabian ever really in my life, so I'm not going to comment on that specific section. Music makes me quite angry these days because I care about it. What happens to it? How it evolves? Oh, you're so deep, man. Wish I could care as much about music as you. I have to keep reminding myself that young folk have grown up with Pop Idol and Pop Idol? How far back are you going? So I shouldn't really have these thoughts about stabbing an entire generation. I mean, no, you shouldn't, because it's not their fault. How have we gotten to a point where most kids are listening to the same shit as their folks? I mean, young teens like Adele and Sheeran, etc., but so do 40 and 50-year-olds. Do you know what else young teens and 40 and 50-year-olds like? Bands like the Rolling Stones, or at least they wear the t-shirts. What are you trying to say here? Are you trying to suggest that music should be age specific and that you're not allowed to listen to, like, I don't know, Ed Sheeran or something after 25? Or that if multiple generations of people like the same music, then that automatically makes that music terrible? I was listening to London Grammar and Work the other day, and a guy who was probably about 65 told me how much he liked it, and he asked if I could write down the name of the band so that he could look them up when he got home. Guess I should just burn their records and delete them off my iTunes, because clearly they're shit if more than one generation listens to them. Me and my parents both listen to Mozart as well. Should I stop listening to that? I can tell you right now that Mike McFaul never knocked on my bedroom door and said, "Alright son, want to give us a shot of your Metallica tape because me and Alistair Bottles are away out in the car and we fancy having a thrash along to Enter Sandman whilst going over the blah at 70 miles an hour." Or he never came in and told me how much he loved my bass generator live at the Fubar Club with MCXXX tape. No, he fucking banged on the door and told me to turn that fucking shite down. Does this guy have any clue that he is the person that is banging on the bedroom door of the teenager telling them to turn that shite down? You are literally the fusty old man in this situation complaining about the new generation of music. And that's the way it should be. But what has a teenager got out there to get excited about / turned into an avid music fan? Not much, unless they go wading through a pile of shit to find it. It wasn't that hard when I was young. What are you talking about, mate? Music is more accessible and there is more of it now than there has ever been before. There is so much good music out there that I find it really, really difficult trying to keep track of all of the new artists that I want to listen to. I genuinely don't understand this weird sort of overly romanticized idea that somehow music nowadays is all shit, but music back then was just better and everything was better. There were shit bands then as well. The only difference is that all of the good bands from that era are still remembered now. So in exactly the same way way, a lot of the shit music that you hear now will effectively have been forgotten about in 50 years' time. Do you think the 60s wasn't filled with mindless, vacuous pop music as well? Of course it fucking was. Music should be generational. Why? Why do you want to confine people's enjoyment of music, which is an entirely subjective thing, to the age that they are? That's absolute fucking madness. New music should be something 90% of the older generation don't get, and for the young to stick their fingers up to them and say, fuck you, this shit is ours, you boring old... You know how there's this big, like, vintage resurgence at the moment? If all the kids started doing that to the adults, then the adults could just turn around and tell them to fuck off because it was their music in the first place. 24 Karat Magic, massive 80s influences. Same with a lot of the 1975 music as well. Music, it's not some, like, linear thing that just goes in one direction until it reaches some sort of massive end point. It's cyclical. Experiments happen and a new type of music becomes popular. All of the pop artists will start incorporating that kind of style into their music. A new experiment will happen that will then take the place of the popular music will come back over here, and people will start saying things like dubstep is dead. But in like 20 years time, dubstep will just become the new vintage music influence for that era. Of course there are exceptions to that, and lots of new music is constantly being made that isn't mainstream. I think what this guy is doing, I think he is confusing mainstream with accessible. Pop music will always exist, and if you can't accept that, get over yourself and grow up a little bit, okay? Because that's just the way it works. But we are lucky enough to have made the technological advances that mean that all of this other music can be found easily by people. Being a promoter in a small town means I have to be all things for everyone, book all styles, and to do that I have to kid on to myself I know nothing about how to play music, try to understand how someone that doesn't have the same musical appetite as me thinks, and how I get them through the door to a gig. It's not an easy thing to do after being a musician for 20 years. Fair enough, you know, I'm not arguing with that. If you're a promoter, then it's your job to promote artists that you maybe don't like, and that's just part of your job role. And I'm sure that can be difficult. There's so many young bands out there, and so many of them are dross, and it's soul destroying. So you're just basically complaining now that there are bad bands and bad musicians that exist. It's all about skinny jeans, beards, and tattoos, and having more photo shoot pics of your bands than you do actual fucking songs. Criticizing what an artist wears is a very, very juvenile thing to do. I get the point about having more photo shoots than songs, but that's just marketing. You have to market yourself, because in this day and age, even if you get a record deal, you're not necessarily going to get loads of marketing. So if you can know how to market yourself, then that's a good thing. And we live in an era of social media where people need to have good looking photos of their band if they want to promote them. Don't get me wrong, there's some fucking great stuff out there, but that will never get to the top, or at least near it, where it should be, giving more of the youth a chance to see it and get into it. And you'll always get some that'll say, well, they couldn't have been that good if they didn't sell X amount of records / being on Radio 1 or some other nonsensical bollocks that makes me want to set fire to their face. You're the one chatting nonsensical bollocks. Now, I'm totally in agreement that sales and talent are not necessarily linked at all, and there are lots of artists, in my opinion, that sell a huge number of units. But on the flip side of that, selling lots of music doesn't mean you're a bad artist either. I hate all these chart-topping artists like Queen, David Bowie, Prince, Michael Jackson, The Beatles. Now, that's just a bit of hyperbole on my part, and I'm sure the counter-argument to that would be, yeah, but that's from a different era, man. That was when music was good. Conveniently forgetting the fact that in the heyday of those artists, there was also a huge plethora of mainstream manufactured pop music. The only difference is, as I said earlier, that music hasn't endured, and the good music has, which is exactly what's going to happen with this music. Also, lots of really, really good artists can sell a lot of music as well. I mean, look at Alt J. Alt J's first album is a fucking masterpiece, in my opinion. Sold loads. Mercury Prize winning album. The cream doesn't rise to the top when it comes to music. Not anymore. Maybe it never did, but at least it stood a better chance back in the day. No, it didn't. It literally stood a worse chance back in the day. You're talking about a time that radio presenters effectively had a dictatorship over what music people could and couldn't listen to. Have you seen Walk the Mile? At the beginning of that film, a young Johnny Cash is scraping together what money he can to try and get a record recorded and cut, because that was his only way of getting his music out there. Nowadays, you can just put your music on SoundCloud or Bandcamp, and if you are good enough at promoting yourself, and if you have a good enough product, then it will gain some interest. These days, you could say shit floats, and he's referring to pop music here. Pop music has always been popular, it's always been generic, it's always been bland, hence why it's called pop. Euler music. So if you're in a young band, don't give two fucks about making it anymore. That's great promotion there. Music up the top end is fucking dead. It's for the soulless. What can you say to that? Ed Sheeran's song, Small Bump. It's about a woman having a miscarriage. It musically by no means is breaking down any barriers, but the subject matter is something that hasn't been written about very often, and a lot of people can relate to, and may well have helped a lot of people get through a miscarriage, which would be an absolutely awful and terrible time in anyone's life. Soulless. It's for the bloke who's got some rancid fucking quote tattooed across his chest like a dick, who goes to the gym 7 days a week, eats his meals out of wee Tupperware boxes that he prepared the night before, and who watches Made in f***ing Chelsea. You're drawing parallels where there are none. That's who mainstream music is for now. It's over. Finished. Strangled by the likes of Cowell and the other music gods. It's not over. It's just a continuation of exactly the same format pop music has always been. Mainstream music has always just been something to appeal to the vast majority of people. So just forget all that shit and go out and play some great f***ing gigs. Loads of them. Have a great time doing it. That's good advice. That is absolutely solid, sound advice. People should do that if they want to make it in the music industry. Do you know who else did that? Ed Sheeran did that when he played like 364 gigs in 1 year. And now he's massively successful because of it. Inadvertently telling people to be like the person you hate the most. Fuck Ed Sheeran and his record-breaking chart success that doesn't actually even exist anymore. He might be on top of the musical landscape, but he's still a rotten, boring, bland dick. I mean, you don't like his music, and that's fine. At the end of the day, there's always going to be rubbish music out there. Manufactured pop music is not a new concept. Bands like JLS are not going to live on in the history books. Ultimately, we live in a world where there is more music that is accessible to us than any other time, and it is our responsibility to find the music that we like. Start doing some research, start finding bands that you like and artists that you like and supporting them, and you'll be doing a lot more for the music industry than you will be by making stupid, pretentious, dogmatic and judgmental Facebook statuses. And that's not a difficult thing to do. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue that the system is perfect. It would be great if artists could get more for their iTunes downloads and their Spotify plays, but it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. And if you can't see that, then you are just being lazy. Smile, there's lots of great music in the world, and if you don't like Ed Sheeran and Adele, don't fucking listen to them. Right, that's it, I'm done. I'm sorry that this has been so ranty, but what do you think? Do you completely disagree with everything I've said? Please let me know down in the comments, because I would love to hear everyone's opinions on this, and I'm always open to having my mind changed about things. By all means, let me hear it, because I genuinely would love to. Sorry again for the angsty nature of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you still are, Music Month next week, and the theme is Melancholy March, so I'm going to be talking about all of my favourite sad, depressing, and primarily melancholy music choices, so I hope you're looking forward to that. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you very soon.